This week, we talk about BlackBerry and TCL breaking up, GeForce Now launching, Apple software bundles, and more, as we, together, as a people, check it out. Alright, we are back on yet another sensational Saturday. This is Mike, and I'm here to bring you the tech news, all the stuff that happened this week that was important in the whole universe of technology. Pretty much technology, sometimes gaming, sometimes DNA tests, which brings us to our first story. So a couple weeks ago, I reported that 23andMe had to lay off 100 people because their sales were down for the DNA test stuff. It's not popping off in the streets like it used to be. You know, people aren't just in the back of the club asking to get their DNA tested like they were a couple years ago. So Ancestry had to follow suit. They also have laid off 100 people due to declining sales with the DNA test. And from what I gathered, Ancestry was originally like, they were the name behind the whole trend. They started the trend, so yeah, the industry, or that industry, is just down right now. Now, do I think that either of them are in big trouble, 23andMe or Ancestry? I don't think so, because it's one of those things where people are going to be curious about their composition, the composition of their DNA. Theirs is probably not going to be boring like mine. Might have something interesting in there. Who knows? But they're going to have to change and adjust what they offer. I know 23andMe, because I personally use it, they also offer like a health component where you can get your health history. So these little bonuses are probably going to add up and help them spin off and offer different services. There's also the whole thing with people's data being reportedly sold by these companies, and you're kind of giving them your DNA. So there's a lot of different components to it why these companies could be in trouble, but I think they'll be fine. And speaking of being fine, you know who's going to be fine? Employees at LG, as they have announced that they're skipping MWC, or Mobile World Congress, because of the coronavirus outbreak. So they're claiming that, they don't want to risk the safety of their employees by going to MWC, which is probably true, because it's Mobile World Congress. It's a pretty big event as far as in the mobile space. Obviously, if a big company like LG decides to skip it and potentially lose, the press that they gain from it, then it's probably something that they had to really think about, and they probably had employees that were concerned. So it's understandable that they would go ahead and skip and not risk their employees. I don't believe anybody else at this time has said that they're not going due to the coronavirus outbreak. I thought this was interesting, because this is one of the few things that I've heard about recently that has just been like, well, we're not going to go due to the risk of this virus. And obviously, everybody's afraid of it. No one wants to get this coronavirus and die. Well, okay, no, it's not that serious, but there are people that are dying from it. But still, it's interesting that they're not going. And when it comes to press, anyway, if LG does have a major announcement, they could always just make the announcement online, like through a press release or through one of the websites that cover mobile, and get a lot of press anyway during that same week that MWC is going on. So it's not really the biggest deal in the world for them to skip, but I just thought it was interesting. In our next story, we talk about heartbreak. All right, sometimes you get in a relationship, you have a good 4 years, or an okay 4 years, or 4 years where you just kind of tried to make it work and it didn't work, but you put years into this relationship. It's an investment, and then you just realize, like, hey, this is not working out. This relationship's gonna have to end. I'm sorry, BlackBerry, but we dropping you, dog. So that's right, TCL and BlackBerry are breaking up. So they officially announced they're not going to be working together any longer. So BlackBerry, they've kind of been struggling since the release of the iPhone, a little bit after that, because when the iPhone initially released, it didn't have a lot of the productivity features that BlackBerry had, so they weren't really worried about it, and they still dominated like the business space. And then as the iPhone and then these other Android phones got more productivity features, and they got Office, and the experience was honestly better than on what BlackBerry offered, then businesses moved over to these phones, and then BlackBerry was kind of out of it. But BlackBerry was like the OG smartphone. It had that really nice keyboard that a lot of people liked. I even had a BlackBerry at one point. It was a BlackBerry Pro Flip, so it barely counts, but they've been in a tough position. So they partnered up with TCL in 2016, and TCL was making the hardware for their phones, and they finally stopped using their own operating system and switched over to Android, and they were focused on privacy, but the phones just weren't that good or that compelling in comparison to the other Android offerings that were out there, and they just basically struggled to capture any market share back. So TCL is like, yo, we done. We're not making BlackBerry hardware anymore. So BlackBerry still exists. They're just not making their own hardware or operating system anymore. They're still making their own software. It's just Android-based software that's going to go on the skin of Android that they use specifically, but it's still not the same. It's not the same as it was, prior to the phone era that we're in now for BlackBerry. And it'll be interesting to see if they can bounce back, or if they'll try to find somebody else, or maybe they'll just finally get out of the mobile business altogether. So for now, it's RIP for BlackBerry and TCL. We'll see what their next move is. Speaking of next move, you know who's preparing for the future? Apple. It was found in their latest beta that there was code to allow app developers to sell like an iOS/macOS version of the app together as a bundle. So basically, when Apple started this thing, Project Catalyst, where they're allowing like iOS apps to be developed for macOS, this is kind of the next step in it, where it's like you buy one version of the app and then you get it for macOS and iOS together. So that's basically what this is, and that makes sense because that's the direction they're going. It's kind of the blending of their two, or at this point like three, because if you include iPadOS, which is now a separate operating system, this is kind of the blending of all those operating systems. Well, I think from Apple's standpoint that they see mobile as the future of computing, so it kind of makes sense to start bringing all these operating systems together, macOS, iOS, and iPadOS, and offering the same apps through all of them. So this is just basically giving the companies the option to sell the same version of the app for both. Now, it's probably still going to be up to that company if they want to do that. So they may be totally free to just charge one price for the macOS version and another price for the iOS version, even if it is pretty much the same app. But I think, like I said, this makes a lot of sense, and hopefully Apple will finally put versions of like Logic and Final Cut out for the iPad and make that a bundle, because that'd be awesome. But we'll have to see. They should have been done it by now, especially when this whole pro stuff that they've been kicking around. Like, why can't I use Logic on my iPad? Tell me, Apple. Tell me. And in our final story, Google Stadia is dead. Okay, I exaggerated. They're not dead yet. But this could be the first nail in the coffin for a service that's barely launched, as GeForce Now, a service that's honestly been around for a long time. But they finally came out of beta and is now officially out. So GeForce Now allows you to take your existing libraries like Steam and stream a lot of the games. Now, they have a free tier right now that allows you to play for up to 1 hour, like a 1 hour session, and then your lower priority as far as your servers. And then they also have a $5 tier that's unlimited. For right now, they did say that the pricing is probably going to change. The $5 tier is probably going to be limited eventually. And then that gives you higher priority for the servers as far as accessing it. Now, a lot of people are looking at this as a death knell for Stadia already, and it's barely launched. And I think in some ways that's true, because unless Stadia can really provide an experience that's like head and shoulders above what GeForce Now is offering, it's not going to be a compelling service. You have to buy the games from Google, the same games that you might already own. Whereas GeForce Now is just literally taking your existing libraries and allowing you to play them, like allowing you to stream them. Like from a customer standpoint, unless GeForce Now is really bad, I haven't tested it yet myself, but unless the streaming quality is like really bad, then I don't see why someone would want to go with Stadia over GeForce Now, especially when you could at least have the game on Steam and you can still play it locally when you're at home, and then when you're away, log into GeForce Now and play it. With that being said, Stadia does have a free tier where they don't have a streaming limit. You just have to buy the game and then you can play it, but you still have to buy the game at full price to play it on Stadia. at least with GeForce Now, you know what you're paying for. You're literally paying to use our servers to play the games that you already have. So I'm super excited to try GeForce Now. And in my opinion, they don't even have to be better than Stadia, streaming quality wise. As long as it functions, it's automatically going to be better than what Google's offering right now. So let me know what your opinion is. But I know that, in my opinion, it's time to end this thing. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to tell a friend, tell a coworker, like, share, and subscribe, and always do at least 2 things at the same time. Peace.